Alright, so let us begin. This Imperial Forum, third installment, it's about my personal adoption journey. We could say there is one, two, three, four, 6 parts to it. There's 6 installments or chapters in this journey so far. And we will start with the very beginning. So, adopted from Korea, South Korea, as 3 months old. And then starting from when I was 6 years old, I started going to Korean culture camps that were hosted by my post-adoption services group agency in the United States, in the DMV area. DMV is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Sort of like the tri-state area for New York, New Jersey, and I don't know what the third state is. But it's like that. So I knew I was adopted when I was very young, from what I can remember. So I would go to culture camp every summer for school projects. I would make it related to Korea, but I didn't really care about being Korean. It wasn't a forefront thought to me. It was just what it is. I didn't think about my identity. I didn't think about being Korean. I didn't think of being adopted that much. Main concerns was school, baseball, video games, sports, that sort of thing. So, well, I was exposed to my heritage and knew I was adopted from a very young age, and we went to things, as I said, Korean culture camps, working on Korean projects, getting Korean food, that sort of thing. It wasn't a focus of mine. And that all changed in the summer of 2007 when my family went on a family tour to South Korea. So, that summer, I actually missed my favorite baseball camp, so I was not happy. But there was quite a transformation that occurred in Korea. During that trip, I went from not caring about my heritage being Korean or adopted at all to really caring. Like, I was all in. I was drinking the Kool-Aid and everything. I really wanted to learn my culture, my heritage, everything about it through this trip. So this trip was crazy because, like, it was the first time you saw people who looked like you. First time you saw Koreans, like Asians. You were part of the majority for once. Another thing was that you were sort of exposed to it also because they thought you spoke Korean. So they would come up to you and they start speaking Korean to you and then be all weird, and they weirded out when they didn't realize you didn't know Korean because you look Korean, but you don't speak Korean. So that's part of it, just being exposed. Sorry. Being exposed to so many Koreans sort of opened my eyes to it. But there's a couple other instances from this trip that really got me interested. One is I saw my birth file for the first time. And that's pretty powerful. Seeing your supposed history of why your parents' history, who your parents are, birth parents, the circumstances of why, how you were born basically, and why you're giving up. Not all birth files are correct. There's various reasons for that. But as a 13-year-old, that blows your mind thinking about that. I also got to meet my foster mother, and that is quite a life experience as well. It's not at a level as a birth mother reunion, but being reunited with your foster mother is the same sort of thing. They really care about you. They took care of you when you're basically born and a couple months old till you were adopted, or back in the case when I was adopted, that was the case. So that was very powerful. She was like, "Oh, do you like it's really funny because it's actually having my reunion with birth mother later. They always touch you. They're holding your hand. They're like sometimes crying, but they're all but basically like, "Oh, I missed you," etc., etc. One thing they always say is, "Learn Korean." They ask you to know Korean, and they tell you should learn it. So I was told that. But I thought I started taking it seriously. I was like, okay. But it's something, but you need to find something that you can connect to with your heritage. And for me, that was pop music in Korea. Um, I don't know when exactly I really got into it. There's like three defining moments for me with the Korean music. We were shopping in Myeongdong, if I recall, and I wanted to go get music because I always like music. So I was like, okay, let's go get good music store. And I said, okay, I want. That's the one of the store employees. I want hip hop. I want a hip hop album because I was really into hip hop at that time. They gave me Dynamic Duo's album Enlightenment. Dynamic Duo is huge. Actually, they said here's Epic High and Dynamic Duo, and I chose Dynamic Duo over Epic High. I don't know. I think Epic High is better now, but like Dynamic Duo is solid, and that album was baller. Enlightenment was great, great album. And then I was just roaming the store, and I just went and I picked up, excuse me, the first Blooming by Kata, and that was crazy in and of itself because Kata ends up being one of the biggest K-pop groups in the 2000s. And I picked up their first Blooming, one of their first pieces, one of the first albums. So that's wild. So I kind of dynamic duo and then randomly pick up Kata from the first album and then become sensational superstars. I have a story about that later. But then another moment is I became obsessed with MTV in Korea because they're playing Korean music videos. And there's a song by Gia, her first album. She's a ballad singer. And it was a music video with Kim Ok Bin in it. I forget the name. It's like Muguro Geso or something like that. I played it on stream countless times. It's Exploding Car video. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Gia's music. And I think it was like just a tipping point where it's like, whoa, I didn't realize I'm really getting into my Korean culture, my heritage. I want to learn more about it. And it was that sort of tipping point. And then I went and I bought another album. It was Baby Vox REV album with Never Say Goodbye. Baby Vox REV was like a revamp of the original Baby Vox, but without most of its members. So it failed. But it's really cool I picked that up too. Because that was like a revamp of a really famous group in the 90s. Like Korean music really connected me. It's sort of insane how connected I got with Korean music and some really big artists. Or they were small then, but they became big later. Or they're at the tail end. So it's weird. Got Dynamic Duo, who's like in their prime. Not their prime, but around their prime area. Kata, when they're just beginning. And then Baby Vox REV, which is at the tail end of their career. So it was quite the spectrum. But, read my birth file. Me and my foster mother getting a connection with Korean music. That's what's my gateway in. And coupled with just being around all these Koreans who accepted you as one of their own, really started changing my mind about my adoption journey, what I felt about adoption, what I felt about Korea, and my heritage. I'm not saying I wasn't welcomed by people in America. That's not true. But there's something different when you look the same as everyone else when you've been the minority your entire life. And so that's what happened in my trip to Korea. And it basically, I can say the trip to Korea changed my life. I went from not caring about Korea, my heritage, to suddenly caring. It was a spectrum, one end to there, whoosh! And then I was off to the races, and this continued into high school. And I almost forgot. This picture reminds me. And I visited my hometown. And that really hits you too, visiting your hometown, your birthplace. And it was just cool because I'm into history, and there's a lot of historical things with Moongyeong. Like the historical movie set in Moongyeong, which is awesome because I love historical dramas. I didn't watch them before, but I got interested into them when we visited one of the minor movie sets in Moongyeong. It was like a fortress gate. I've seen it in some dramas, so it was pretty cool. And that visiting your birth town also definitely affects you, I think. It's another connection because now you suddenly have connections with Korea, And that changes. It's not a distance thing. It's not an abstract far away. You've been there, you've experienced it, and now you have living connections to the place and your heritage. But then, after Korea, what happens? We hit high school. And then I'm going all in. Now at this point, I am actually out of culture camps as a camper. But now I've decided, because of my change in perspective on Korea, I start volunteering as a CIT, which is counselor in training, and then as a counselor at these camps. Suddenly, I'm researching everything Korean. I'm really getting into music. I know all the music now. I'm buying countless movies. I'm watching countless K dramas like Goong, which is Palace, um, Jumong, which is a historical Korean drama, a saguk, all of those. I go and suddenly decide, I want to go to a Korean immersion camp called Subsuke Hosu. Awesome experience. I went 2 years. I'm sad I started going late in my high school career, but like it is an amazing experience. I loved it. It's fantastic. And the cool thing is a lot of Korean adoptees went to that camp too. But suddenly my life changed. Now I'm doing everything Korea. Like all I'm listening to is Korean music. All I'm watching is Korean dramas on Korean movies. I went all in. Everyone knew that in my high school. you know, Went all in high school with Korean stuff. And but also it changed my perspective. I also started thinking, not just pop culture, I started thinking about Korean history more closely, Korean society. I started my birth mother search right, like, about half a year after we came back from Korea. So I started that. But it was like but the thing that's interesting about birth search, maybe it's my personality. So I started researching about it, and I learned about the circumstances why adoptions occurred, and not a circumstance, but also societal pressures, that sort of thing. But I think really matured a lot through that search. Um, my search ends up taking 8 years, and I thought at one point that it wasn't going to happen. But so it wasn't just all fun and games. It made me start thinking about my identity as a Korean adoptee. Because I was like, whoa, I'm really into Korean stuff now. I'm really embracing my Korean side, where before I was only embracing my American side. But I'm more Koreans I learn. No, it feels less Korean. But the high school, there weren't many Koreans, so I was pretty high on the Kool-Aid, Korean Kool-Aid. So you could say before the trip to Korea, I was embracing my American side. There was no Korean side. Now we're like switching. I'm like all about the Korean side. American side's okay, but all about the Korean side. So like see someone like this and went from here to there. There wasn't a balance per se. And actually, I get that balance in college. But high school, I started embracing my Korean side, but I also started looking into Korean things and Korean society, Korean history, and it starts making me think a little deeper. But at this point, my identity, so I identify as a Korean American adoptee. Before Korea trip in '07, very much emphasis on the American side part. Now in high school, a lot of emphasis on the Korean side. But what about the adoptee side? I'm doing adoption camps, I'm doing that, but I don't think about my identity as an adoptee as much. I'm all in about the Korean side, you know? So then it comes to college. And this is where my identity as an adoptee really comes out. Because of some, you could say, poor experiences with the Korean side. So when I went to college, I was all in on Korea still. So I go to college, I try to hang out with all these Koreans. And then there's the Koreans who are very not friendly at GW. Sadly, they're very cliquey. So didn't feel part of that group. Korean Americans are nicer, but I truly didn't feel part of that group either. So you start thinking about like, I don't belong in those groups at all. I emphasize being Korean, but I'm not fitting in with them. And so at that time, I started looking more into my adoptee side. I joined some adoption groups, adult adoption groups, like a social group, but then another one. I was a board member of a group called Korean Focus, which was more for resources for adoption families, adoptive parents. So I started really embracing that side, and I had to start thinking about my identity more when I was sort of like rejected by the Korean communities. It's like, wait, but I'm Korean, but I'm being rejected by them. But that's not my whole identity. Oh, my chat. Oh, what's up, Divine? How's it going, man? We're talking about my personal adoption story. Um, so at this point in college, I'm thinking like about my identity. It's sort of like identity crisis because like I have American side, that's never in doubt. But I've been embracing my Korean side for the past like 4 years now. But that's getting pushback from regular Koreans. So you're like, huh, I don't belong with them. So what's my identity? And it becomes that like triangle of like Korean, American, adoptee. So I've already explored my American triangle of the circle. I explored my Korean circle. And then in college I started exploring my adoptee circle. So I started getting involved with that. Because like adoptees you think, oh, they're adopted. They're similar to me. Like we're all similar. We all understand each other. That turns out not to be the case later. So interestingly enough. It's like a lot of drama with Korean adoptee communities. Um, it's definitely influenced what I think about Korean adoptees overall. Um, but yeah, so college was very interesting in that respect. Not to say I was rejecting my Korean side. I still embrace my Korean side. It's just finding that balance between the three to find my identity. And I don't think people realize with Korean adoptees is like you never. It's I speak for myself. I don't speak for everyone, but a number of Koreans I know, adoptees that don't feel like they belong in one group. I can't tell you how many times I've seen conversations about that. They just feel almost like an outcast, and that's definitely true. And you really have to start thinking about what you believe your identity be and what you think identity is as a social construct. And I have thoughts on that, but college is interesting. Trying to balance the three and realize my identity is very equally Korean American adoptee. But that's what college basically helped me decide. It's like, I treat them equally. They're equal thirds. They're all part of me. And it doesn't really matter what other people think. So one thing about Korean adoptees and their identity is that they end up trying to be validated by people in those groups, which is really stupid because a lot of Koreans, like I'm saying, a lot of Koreans are really nice, but there's a number of Koreans who aren't, and they're judgmental pieces of shit. And if you think your identity as a Korean is determined by them, you're gonna have a tough time. And it's figuring that out for a lot of adoptees that, hey, it doesn't matter what the fuck they think. They don't know shit. They don't know who I am. I'm just Korean as them. Just because they were born in Korea and they got raised in Korea doesn't mean shit. We still have the same fucking blood in our veins. And that's sort of like the take I have now. Before it was sort of weird, like, oh, I don't fit with them. Like, am I really Korean? But then that sort of changed. So I was in that sort of thought process first 2 years in college. But that definitely changes when I go back to Korea twice my junior year of college in 2013. But before we go on, I want to tell the story when I was talking about like how Korean pop was my gateway. See that picture with the Kata CD? I was mentioning before. So then in college, the Korean Culture Center was doing a contest, a monthly contest on with different K-pop groups stuff, and they had a Kata one, and the grand prize was a Kata CD. So I submitted my story about how they were my first group, one of my first groups that I got into Korean culture and really started exploring my Korean side of my Korean American adoptee identity. And it actually won first place, which was really cool. I mentioned how that was my gateway into exploring my heritage and culture, which is true. But yeah, so that experience in '07 translated to getting a signed CD by Kata. So I think it was pretty cool. But that's just a cool aside. Going back, so now we're like, okay, so I explored my Korean side, I explored my American side, I explored my adoptee side, but like I'm having trouble with my identity because at this point, I identify adoptee, but I still want to be more Korean. I want to emphasize the Korean portion, but the Korean community is not accepting me. Hmm. So now you're facing pushback, and now you're wondering and self doubting: Am I Korean? If the Koreans aren't accepting me, am I really Korean? And now it all changes because I go to study abroad. So I went on a Korean adult adoptee tour that year, and then I studied abroad at Yonsei University that fall. So I guess we'll talk about them now. So it's interesting because I've already was on a tour to Korea at that point. So I was like, I don't really want to go. Like, but I was convinced because I knew both people who were running it. So I said, okay, sure. And it was their first inaugural tour. And it was great because that was a group of adoptees where I felt connected with. Um, as I mentioned before, adoptees as a community, it's not great. There's a lot of drama, a lot of clickiness, a lot of chaos, a lot of my story is the only story. My story is better than yours. My story exemplifies the adoptee experience. There's a lot of that goes on. Um, but with this tour, we had a wide range of adoptees. We had older adoptees who never gone to Korea before. We had we had younger adoptees who'd been to Korea multiple times, did culture camps, that sort of thing. So it was a wide range of adoptees, but that trip felt great. I felt if I was not close with everyone, I had good feelings about everyone, but I became very close with a number of adoptees through that trip, and it really helps you with this negatives of the adoptee community because you have to remember there's good adoptees out there, like ones who won't backstab you, aren't into drama, that sort of thing. But one of the cool things is that tour has connections. And connections with that tour with the police officer who specializes in finding birth families, specifically missing persons and that sort of thing, but that includes adoptees and birth families. And that actually, through that connection with him, Sergeant Lee, who then became Lieutenant Lee, now he's Professor Lee, like he retired from the force, he tracked down my birth mother that I found out when I studied abroad that fall. So I went that summer, came back, amazing experience with our adoptees. It was just another layer of being able to interact with the Korean side and realize. And then through that trip, I met a lot of really nice Koreans who it felt normal. They're like, I felt very Korean being with them, and I was like, hey, these are real Koreans too. And if they're accepting me as Korean, so screw the college kids, those college shits who think I'm not Korean because I'm not 100% like them. So that helped me open my eyes. And then I went and studied abroad. And I interacted with Koreans every day. And I realized, yeah, dude, like, I'm Korean. Like, just because I'm adopted doesn't mean I'm any less Korean than any other Korean. And being able to immerse myself in Korean society and Korean culture helped me understand that. Like, other Koreans didn't care. Like, I met a lot of Koreans. They didn't care I was adopted. They thought it was interesting. And they didn't think it made me less Korean. They thought it was actually admirable that I was so into my culture, my heritage, the language, considering I was taken away from it as a baby. So that was really cool because it's like almost like validation. Like, hey, this is part of me. And just knowing that really helps solidify what I think of as identity for me, as in what I am as an adoptee. Um, as I said, my identity is Korean American adoptee, and at this point in my life, I consider them equal thirds. They're all a very important part of me. Um, there's not one that stands out per se, because I've learned they all together make me who I am. Without one, part of me is missing. So that's how I've come to think about my identity, which I think has been really cool. Be able to figure that out. Now, not every adoptee is the same. Every adoptee's adoption journey is at different stages, at different points, with different twists and turns, and different outcomes, and different observations, and different analyses than mine. But this has been mine, you know. I do want to mention about identity. Identity is a social construct, and it's used to categorize you, box you in. I think identity is useful, but I don't think it is the end all. Identity is what you make of it. People will try to make identity be what they perceive you to be and say that's your identity. But you don't have to listen to that. Identity is you. You decide your identity. It's called self-identity for a reason. So screw the people who want to force you in a box. If you don't want to be in that box, don't be in that fucking box. Screw them. And I think that's part of my mentality now. Just been dealing with thinking deeply on adoption and identity for so long now. As you see, I was starting dealing with this when I was 13 years old until even now. And I realized, especially in college, when the whole Korean crisis, where I was like, oh, Koreans don't think I'm Korean. And I realized other Koreans thought I was Korean. That doesn't really matter. If I think I'm Korean, and I consider that part of my identity, it's part of my identity. It really helps. I'm a international affairs major, so we had a class and we talked about identity in terms of nationalism, but in another class we talked about identity itself, and it's like, you can have whatever identity you want. You can have multiple identities at different times. You can identify, and then in importance, you can think this identity is more important for you right now than this one. But later that can change. This one can suddenly supersede the other one. And just understanding it's all internal. It's whatever you decide your identity to be has really helped me. And I think that'd be really helpful for a lot of adoptees, where it's like, if you want to think about identity, don't think about social groups, don't think about that sort of thing. What do you feel? How do you identify yourself? Korea doesn't have to be at the top. America doesn't have to be at the top. Adopted doesn't even have to be at the top. Identify how you want to identify as what you think is most important to yourself. And that is one thing I think is really useful for adoptees. Is make your own self-identity without any outside constructs, without outside influence, so you can be happy with who you say you are and how you want to be identified as. Whew. But yeah, that trip to Korea, those trips were mind-blowing. They're great. I met my birth mother, and I think that's part of my Korean identity. Like, I always felt like something was missing before, because like I don't know my circumstance. I don't know my birth mother. I don't know the family. I don't know my family history. Blah 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 blah. I always was okay. Well, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. At one point, I thought I wasn't ever gonna find my birth mother. But I will say, finding my birth mother really helped me. It felt like a part of me missing came back. It was a missing piece, and it's really sad because a lot of adoptees won't ever have that experience. So I can see how that could affect them. So, but I felt there was a part missing of me when I didn't know my birth mother. And I felt that piece returned when I was able to reunite. She's in one of these pictures that is in the slideshow. And that picture is from our first reunion. I guess I would like to continue this on my thought about identity. Prayer made me comfortable with thinking whatever I am is who I am. You saw the picture of me wearing the little ear things. I would never have done that before I went to Korea studying abroad there. Because I realized in Korea, like, they're like pretentious and self-judging in other ways, but on some things they aren't. And that just made me accept, like, oh, I can do this in Korea. I couldn't do this in America. And then you get over the embarrassment, and then you go like, yeah, if I want to do this, I'll do this. So that helped solidify for me also. Like, different cultures, different standards. I just want to do what I want to do. You know? And I think that's helped. And I think it's helped with my adoption journey also. It's just not necessarily caring what other people think. I mean, to an extent. I care about certain people's thoughts. But, like, that's why I do Twitch things. I'm like, okay, you can hear me sing. I'll embarrass myself on stream. The Big Bunny Energy video. It's funny. Okay? Like, it's funny. But I don't care, because it's enjoyable to me, and I don't care what other people think. They think it's stupid, whatever, whatever. But, like, how am I now, after college? With all that. Post-college. Where am I in my adoption journey? I think I've had enough experiences and enough thought that it's finally time for me to project to others. And what I mean by that is I just want to say my story and my thoughts. And I don't want to force it on anybody. Let's get that clear. I'm not adopted as like my story is the only story. My story is the best story. Mine's the prototypical story. My story is what should be projected for the community as a whole. No. I just want to help present my story to help so other people can take what they will from it. Because the thing about adoptees and I think of the adoption community is there's not enough information sharing, especially in a more neutral light. I'm not going to say all my thoughts on adoption are neutral. Don't get me wrong. But the way I do it is, even have an opinion, I want to give you the facts. What I know, the facts. And I'll give you the facts, and you can take the facts as they are. And you can come with your own conclusions about those facts. I will give you my own personal analysis on it. And that might affect you, yes. But I'm giving you facts. I'm not going to give you just my story and my conjectures and say that's fact. That's the truth. No, I'm going to give you facts. I'm going to give you the truth. And I'm like, these are my thoughts on it. Take these thoughts as you will. And I think we don't have enough of that in the adoption community. A lot of the stories are my story and your stories are bad. And it's been bad. I've seen stories about adoptees who have bad experiences. It's true. There's going to be adoptees bad experiences. But they then try to shove it down your throat. And it's like, just because your story is positive, mine's negative. So my negative story outweighs your positive. And so this should be the narrative for Korean adoptions. And that is something I am really tired of. And so that's why I want to do these Imperial Forum streams. I want to talk about adoption. Because I want to be able to reach a wider audience to talk about these important issues and give background is my thoughts. You know, it's now this might sound like it's rambling at this point, but I just want to spread my perspectives from the experiences I've had to other adoptees who might not have heard these other perspectives, because a number of adoptees don't like talking about these issues. A number of adoptees will only talk in private about these issues. Very few will talk about very publicly, like on a stream or video, about these. And I just want to serve as another tool, another resource for the adoption narrative. I don't want my narrative to be the only narrative. I don't want my narrative necessarily to be the predominant narrative. I just want my narrative to be one of the narratives that people can, especially adoptees, can look towards while they figure out their own journey, their own identity, their own adoption story. That's what I think is important, and that is what I'm trying to do. And that is why I made this stream talking about my personal adoption journey, just so adoptive family, their parents, or the children can watch it and take things from it and apply it to however they want to apply it, if it helps them. That's what I'm trying to do, because that's what we need more of in this Korean adoptee community, the CAD community. And I see a need, at least to me, and I talked to some adoptees I know, and they see a need too. And this is why we're doing this. Nothing more, nothing less. So I hope you enjoyed us talking about my personal adoption journey. Thank you for watching this installment of the Imperial Forum stream/video. I hope you enjoyed it and you gained something new from it. If you're interested, I would suggest watching my other Imperial Forum videos on YouTube, or actually even checking out our Imperial Forum stream, or in fact, any of my other streams. I do a K-pop stream and I do gaming streams as well. I attached my business card, so that's all my social medias and my Twitch link. So check them out, and I hope you enjoyed this, and I can't wait for you to watch the next video. Till then, the Emperor bids you adieu.